Welcome to this explainer. Today we're going to uncover a pretty tough but honestly utterly transformative truth. We're looking at why you simply cannot carry low-frequency relationship dynamics into a high-frequency phase of your life. We'll explore why grieving and releasing the connections that only loved your mask is a brutal yet absolutely non-negotiable step toward discovering your true self. So if you've been feeling drained, stuck, or held back by the people around you, well, you are in the exact right place.
Okay, let's jump right in. We need to confront a reality that so many of us face. You likely have people in your life right now who consistently let you down. You know, they drain your energy, or they fall short in ways that genuinely matter to you. And yet, you stay. You keep over-explaining yourself, you leave the door wide open, and you just bite your tongue when you feel disrespected, all because you absolutely do not want to be seen as difficult. It's exhausting, isn't it?
This brings us to part one, the illusion of goodness. You probably call this kind of endurance loyalty, or you tell yourself you're just being a good person. But let's see what deep psychology actually says about this behavior.
It brilliantly illustrates Carl Jung's concept of the persona. Jung spent decades studying human transformation, and he revealed that performing this constant goodness isn't really a virtue at all. It's actually a carefully constructed mask worn to earn approval, avoid rejection, and make everyone else comfortable. It's an exhausting, low-frequency existence driven purely by the fear that if people saw who you actually were, they'd reject you.
So let me ask you to just pause for a second and take a really honest look at your inner circle. Are you holding on to a ghost? How many of your current relationships exist simply because of history? I mean, are you loving the actual human being sitting in front of you, or are you just addicted to a fantasy of who they could be? Because if it's a fantasy, you are trapped in an outdated version of yourself.
And that leads us right into part two. Two devastating psychological traps. Let's see how this builds, because when you refuse to let old, dysfunctional relationships die, you inevitably fall into one of these traps.
Trap number one is the wounded healer. This is an archetype magnetically drawn to those who are suffering, building their entire sense of purpose around helping and fixing others. If your identity is rooted in holding everything together, you will unconsciously surround yourself with people who are constantly falling apart.
But here's the kicker. This compulsion to fix, it's not actual compassion. It is codependency wearing compassion's clothing. It quietly dictates that you aren't enough unless you're urgently needed by someone else. And the tragic irony here is that constantly fixing others is exactly what prevents you from having to sit quietly with your own unresolved pain. The second trap is projection. This is relating to a person's hypothetical potential instead of who they actually are right now. You end up staying in these painful, exhausting dynamics because you're seeing the version of them that's done the healing work, but you aren't actually seeing them.
Jung was incredibly emphatic about this. When you relate to potential, you're seeing a story you desperately need to be true. Why? Because accepting who they actually are would force you to make decisions you are entirely not ready to make. So think about it for a second. Who are you projecting onto right now?
You might genuinely believe you can fix these dynamics by just being a little more patient or thinking more positively. But transformation is not additive. As the saying goes, you cannot put clean water into a contaminated tank and expect it to stay clean. You literally cannot add positive energy to a dynamic that fundamentally drains you. Something has to go.
Think about the sheer irony of modern self-help for a moment. We spend billions on meditation apps, burning sage, and yes, $40 lavender bath bombs to try and raise our vibration, while actively choosing to spend every single weekend with people who absolutely drain our life force. You don't cure a deep psychological fracture with a bath bomb. You cure it by finally letting the dead relationships die. Which brings us to part three, entering the void. To actually cure this fracture, we have to look at the solution, and it requires stepping into some pretty uncharted territory. When you finally stop performing the good person and withdraw your energy from draining relationships, you enter what Jung called the void. It's a terrifying, empty transitional period where the old self is gone, but the new, authentic self hasn't fully formed yet.
In this space, you experience symptoms of what's beautifully called sacred loneliness. Familiar places suddenly feel strange to you. Everyday conversations completely lose their color. You'll feel a deep sense of disorientation. And society? Well, society will probably look at you and say you're lost or having a midlife crisis.
But Jung said the void is absolutely not a sign that something's gone wrong. Actually, it's the ultimate proof that something real is finally happening. Real transformation just doesn't happen in comfortable, well-lit spaces. It happens right here, in the dark, quiet transition between who you were and who you are becoming. Moving on to part 4, the ultimate reality test. To survive this dark transition, you have to accept real grief and mourn the fantasy of the person you thought they could be.
Once you can finally see them clearly, without the mask of potential or your need to fix them, you can ask yourself the only question that really matters. Look at their reality and ask, is this person, exactly as they are right now, someone who belongs in my life?
This is where I really want you to look inward. What is the one relationship you are terrified to let go of? Name the dynamic you know deep down is preventing you from growing, because acknowledging that dead weight is the very first crucial step to finally putting it down.
This brings us to the path of true psychological sovereignty. You'll know you're finally free when you follow these 4 steps. 1. Watch them show you who they are. 2. Actually believe them the first time. 3. Stop overlaying that story of their potential. And 4. Make choices based entirely on reality. Stop outsourcing your reality to a hypothetical future.
As we wrap up this explainer, I'll leave you with this final thought. Endure the discomfort of the void, release the fantasy, and step into the fierce, untouchable clarity of a person who is finally awake. So will you endure that discomfort and let the illusion die? Or will you keep carrying the heavy weight of relationships that demand you remain small? The choice is entirely yours.